Hi there, Year 6. I'm going to show you where to go for the beginning of rotating shapes in Scratch. First of all, you go to Year 6, the British section, B6SB, and go into Maths ICT lessons. Show you over here, B6SB, B6XB, Maths ICT lessons, rotating shapes in Scratch. And what this will do, it will bring you to here, open this up, and you'll start with the basic Scratch like this. First thing you're going to do is check that you have your buttons, because you're going to rotate this and reflect this creeper into here. It's reflecting, not rotating, sorry. Reflecting this creeper into here, and we're going to reflect the creeper into here, and here, and here, just like in the previous videos. First of all, duplicate these, and then duplicate them like this. Ready? Then we're going to go to the costumes, make sure you're in here because they're all the same. We're going to change these into buttons. Go to Edit, Text, highlight it, Part 1. Done. Okay, make sure you've got Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, Part 4 and Part 5, which is in the right order. There we go. Next thing we're going to do is just double check that these have a broadcast. We're going to go and make sure that these have the corresponding parts to them, like this. So once you've put the broadcast and it corresponds with the number on the button, Part 3, Part 3, Part 2, Part 2, Part 1, Part 1. You're ready to go because your creeper is going to now listen out for those. So when we go to Start, we're going to go to, you can see we've already got our X and Y coordinates pretty much set. Make sure that you understand your coordinates and which way they should go. Remember, across the X and up the Y. So, minus 80, 80, and double check that it goes there. Good. This one over here should be 80, 80. Once you've got all of them, just by duplicating them, make sure they go in the correct order. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Once your buttons are matched, or your clones are matched here, so they can move around in the right order. 1, 2, 3. You can go and get a start position if you want. There, like so. Now your creeper will already have the costumes made for you. It doesn't have to be 80-80, it can be anything you like. If you want them to go from here to here, these all have to be the same though. All the numbers have to be the same. So minus 80, 80, minus 120, minus 120, minus 160, whatever. They have to be the same so that it shows the reflection in all the axes. So the next job is to make sure that the start position is correct, because you can see that my creeper is facing the wrong direction. So get your pointing direction and the costume, make sure you got your costumes in here, give it a test. It doesn't work, so we want it pointing right. It still doesn't look right, then we can change it to X so that it looks the right direction. Good. We wanted to go to part 1. So we want when I receive, because you want the broadcast. When I receive part 1, go to here. That's what you want. And you want to duplicate those because you want to keep it in the same costume. Fantastic. Do the same then on the opposite side, so part 2, when I receive part 2, because part 2 is going to flip it over here, and it has to be flipped in the Y axis. So the code I put in here, the code blocks I put in, is when I receive part 2, which should be in here, when I broadcast part 2, it should flip over, and you've got to change the costume, because the costume is super important, because it's looking in the mirror. The creeper is looking in the mirror. So let's just double check that this is going to work. Start, part 1, part 2, and ready to do part 3 and part 4. You can see that I just duplicated these and then put in my go-to blocks underneath my receive. Make sure this goes to part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. Let's just double check. Maybe these won't turn in the right direction, or the costumes won't be correct. You'll see the pattern in a minute. There's something wrong there, and there's something wrong there. I wonder if you can spot it before I pause and resume. Can you see the difference? So now the costumes have a pattern to them as well. Part 1, X costume, they have to be the same. This costume has to be different because we have to flip it over and reflect into the Y axis so that it's looking in the Y axis. The feet have to be to the feet, like I've said before, and so we do the opposite to this. This is the opposite. 90 minus 90. So the feet are the opposite way. The costume is also the opposite, just like looking in a mirror. Let's see if part 4 changes as well. So we have to flip it over and make it look in the mirror. So the opposite costume is the opposite costume. Give it a test. See if it works. Part 2, part 3, part 4. Home. Have a go. I've got a little task for you in a moment. Good luck.